Oh, why, hello there, everybody. Welcome in, welcome in. This is an idea I've had for quite a few months at this point, honestly. Um, I'm not even sure that this is going to be uploaded. We'll see how the quality is, but yeah, I've been having the idea to make like a, I wouldn't call it a podcast, but just like a very unscripted sort of rambling of words on my way to work some days. And I thought, why not try and upload one, test one in the car today. So I'm literally just recording this on my phone in the car. I'm sure the quality is horrible. I'm sure you're probably going to be hearing, my blinkers and maybe a couple horns here and there. But, yeah, I don't know. There's some days where just listening to music doesn't do it. So I thought, why not try and make some longer form content for you guys. We'll see how it turns out. Really, it's only going to be probably upwards of 20-25 minutes. My drive to work isn't that long, which is good. But yeah, we're still working on a name. Hopefully, going to call it like maybe I don't know, driving with Fizz or Fizz to work. Not quite sure. We'll have to get a theme song and some titles coming up. But yeah, I thought I would talk a little bit today on the recent Commander bannings on Monday. I think it was the 23rd. So it's been a couple days, but in case you haven't heard, the Rules Committee, the people behind sort of, really running the format of Commander, made an announcement Monday morning, very unexpected, announcing some bans of 4 cards. 𝐬𝐤𝐤𝐚𝐥𝐬, Winged Wisdom, Jeweled Lotus, a Dockside Extortionist, and also Mana Crypt. So, I would just like to preface this whole conversation by saying I'll be focusing primarily on Dockside, Mana Crypt, and Jeweled Lotus. I don't think the 𝐬𝐤𝐤 ban is really that much of a surprise. I haven't played against it in a game of Commander, but I have played against it in Modern. And I imagine the Commander deck plays the exact same, albeit probably even longer turns. I think it's no surprise that card, was a design mistake through and through. I think that's a whole other conversation that we can have about sort of WotC's design philosophy, designing cards, intended for Commander and non-Commander exclusive sets, right? So my gripes in the comments I have on this video or in this little talk are not going to be including 𝐬𝐤𝐤. I think Magic is better without 𝐬𝐤𝐤 wherever it may exist. So, yeah, I have no sympathy for the bird. Glad it got banned in Modern. I'm happy I don't have to play it against it in Commander. But yeah, I kind of want to focus a little bit on, Dockside, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt. Again, I just want to preface this whole conversation by I'm not advocating for any hate towards the Rules Committee, right? I think especially the day that the news dropped, there was, we'll say, a lot of discourse in the community, if you will. And unfortunately, a lot of that discourse has come in the form of, like, insults. There was some Rules Committee members talking about getting death threats. So, obviously, anything in that realm is 100% uncalled for. If you are doing any of those things, you deserve to, well, I won't say what you deserve to do, but you should not do that. There's absolutely no place for that in the community. And if you do that, shame on you, and I hope bad things come your way if you're propagating hate onto other people for making decisions about a card game. So, with that out of the way, I would also like to preface this by saying, by no means am I a Magic the Gathering savant. I am not a pro player. I've played Magic for better part of 10 years. I started in M13, took a little bit of a break, and then started again in Aether Revolts. I think that was like 2016-ish, 2017. So, I've been playing Magic really, straight for 7-8 years. So by no means am I an expert. I'm not a finance expert. I'm not a rules game expert. I'm just a normal guy who has a few people check him out on the internet every now and again, right? So by no means am I saying what I think here is law. There are plenty of other people who have made content already that probably can go more into depth. So I'd recommend you checking them out for a more in-depth analysis. I'm also driving right now, so I don't have any visuals in front of me. We'll see if I edit some in. We'll see how this all turns out. But so I don't have any prices in front of me or any graphs. So excuse me if some of the stuff I say is kind of hand wavy, but hopefully I still get my point across. So okay, so let's talk about Dockside, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt. I'll start off with the one that I'm least surprised about from the three, and that one would be Dockside Extortionist, right? Full disclosure, I do have a couple copies of Dockside in decks. Sucks I can't play with them anymore, but I think we can all agree that card, is realistically a problem, right? The ability to recur a Dockside Extortionist, a 2-mana creature, sure, it's not colorless, so it can only be put in red decks, but what red decks it does go into just makes them absolutely explosive. I think hitting Dockside for its combo potential, I don't think that's what they did. Obviously, there was a large focus on early game, or explosive early game fast mana, right? I think besides Nadu, we can sum up these bannings with just hitting those explosive fast mana starts, right? Not to say those are completely eliminated. I just think the consistency of them has been greatly decreased, obviously, right? Two of the main suspects in Dockside and I guess also, three of them really, Jeweled Lotus, but Mana Crypt especially. They're usually the suspects for, explosive fast mana hands. So, I think Dockside has been talked about for quite some time. I think the other two in Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus, I think have been maybe not as talked about, I would say. I think just to start at a very, very high level, am I in support of these bans? I think on paper, yes, right? Again, Nadu is excluded from this conversation. Nadu 100% deserves the ban. It should just be errated to be brought out of the game, right? Nadu is a big mistake. So that'll be the last time we mention the bird. But I don't know. There's something about this ban cycle that it just doesn't sit well with me, right? I mean, is Commander a better place off because of these bans? Probably, yeah, I would say so. I think, again, on paper, eliminating, quote-unquote problematic cards probably is a good thing to do. Again, we don't have the full picture on what happened behind the scenes. I know the Rules Committee is usually closed doors, and by no means do I have any insight on how the banning process or the voting process really goes. But it just seems weird. It just seems really, really weird to me on the timing, right? I don't know. I mean, Dockside especially, right? Like, it's not like it's been weak for some time and then all of a sudden got a glow up. It really has been problematic since it was designed and printed in that was C19, was it? The Brea Precon, or C18, whatever it was. I think it was C19. The Brea deck, right? I think it was Brea, but here nor there. I don't know. I think it's just a weird timing for it. And I think the biggest result of this banning, and not to say that it was intended or, this was the main cause of the ban, is I think this is really a very significant drop in value in people's collections, right? Again, I don't I'm not advocating for, I have no sympathy for, the MTG finance bros and the scalpers and the hoarders that sit on, hundreds of copies of Dockside and hundreds of copies of Vaults or Mana Crypts and all of these things, right? By no means am I saying I feel sorry for them. I think those people are a big problem in the Magic scene. People that treat the game pieces as collectible first, game pieces second. I think that is a extremely dangerous precedent to set, and I think it just causes more problems than what it's worth. Now, the one exception, if you will, air quotes around exception for that rule, in my opinion, are local game stores, right? I think the local game stores are really the ones who suffered on Monday morning, right? The mom and pop stores that are just trying to get by, that bought, your Mana Crypts for $150 last month, or your Jeweled Lotus for $70 earlier this week. I feel sorry for them, honestly. And I think there's this sort of notion where it's like, oh, well, that's why proxies exist. You're stupid for buying these cards. Just proxy everything. I think that's also a very hand-wavy response too, right? Again, if you're like a finance bro and you buy out all of these cards expecting to sell them back later, I don't feel sorry for you, personally speaking. What I do feel sorry for are the game stores that bought these cards, or the casual players that, maybe sold a couple cards to trade up to these cards, or maybe they, traded up for a Jeweled Lotus, whatever, right? Again, is this the rules committee's fault? I mean, indirectly. I guess directly, yes, because they caused this, but I don't think they're fully to blame. I think at the end of the day, really what this is coming down to is it's a Wizards of the Coast's issue, right? It's really just the result of the game design and how it's been pushed for the last, 5-6 years, right? Specifically in the last 3 years, right? I think it is definitely a feels bad moment for, stores and casual players that the majority of the Chase Mythics that have been selling packs in the last couple years, specifically for Lost Caverns of Ixalan with the Mana Crypt reprint. There was Commander Masters with Jeweled Lotus. There was the Dockside reprinting in, was that Double Masters, I think it was, or whatever, Double Masters 22, or whatever it may be, right? I think it's definitely a feels bad moment for players to have these cards that, I can certainly say, maybe not the majority of people, but certainly a non-zero amount of people, in the last couple of years have bought into or have traded it up in, right? So I understand that side of it, and that obviously causes a lot of frustration, right? Like me, full disclosure, I think I have 2 copies of a Dockside, maybe one of Jeweled Lotus and one of Mana Crypt that I got as like a gift for Christmas. I don't know, like at this point probably it was 5-6 years ago, right? So I've definitely lost some money, but again, I'm a game player first. I don't really care about my collection in terms of its monetary worth. If I wanted to sell cards off, I would have sold them off already. So, but there's other people who are much more in tune with their collection and actually do sell some of their cards, right? Not to quite the same level of finance, they're magic economists, if you will. But I don't know. It's just, I feel like it was just all of a sudden, it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I guess there's no obligation for them to disclose what cards are going to be banned. But I think when you're in control of Magic's most popular and played format, again, in the perfect world, all game pieces would be affordable. But obviously, a lot of them aren't. That's why they're, that's a product of them being good, right? Is they're expensive because they're well sought after. They're not really reprinted, which is a whole other issue. But, when there is certainly a non-zero financial impact on the line, number one, I feel like it's very disingenuous for people who don't have Docksides and don't have Mana Crypts and don't have Jewel Lotuses to say, well, it's your fault for buying these cards. You should have proxied them. I'm not going to feel sorry for you, right? I think that's very disingenuous. Proxies, being okay with proxies doesn't automatically make you not want to have game pieces, right? I don't see proxies as a substitute for game pieces. I see them as a supplement, right? So there are people who are okay with playing against proxies that still want the real quote-unquote game pieces, right? So those people shouldn't be punished, right? Just because cards get banned. Obviously, there's no great way to go about it. I think it would be interesting to maybe have some dialogue around cards that are on like a suspect list, So, that would include the rules committee to be, maybe publish a list of cards or a blog post every, call it 6 months or 3 months, however long it may be, right? To talk about cards that, sure, may or may not be on the quote-unquote chopping block, right? So, obviously that in itself comes with a lot of implications and effects. Certainly that's going to have effects on, the secondary market, all of that stuff. We could cover that maybe in another talk for sure, but still, I think there's definitely been certainly has been a disproportional amount of hate towards the Rules Committee. Again, are they fully to blame? No. Are they fully absolved of, blame? In my opinion, also no. I think the Rules Committee is really in a sort of a lose-lose situation where, number one, they're sort of a scapegoat for Wizards of the Coast's decisions in the last, 6 years, 7 years of fire design and product fatigue and, power creep and all of these other things that are really, they're expected in card games, but I think Magic has really, really been, victim of it in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, right? But yeah, I also feel like they're in a lose-lose position because, before the bannings, people were saying that they don't do anything, right? So they're sort of damned if they don't ban cards, and when they do go through with bannings, they are kind of ridiculed and, shit on as well. So I don't know. I think hopefully when the dust settles, there'll be some change for the better, whether that's in the Commander or, whether that's actually in the Commander format, whether it's how, Commander games are played or how the Rules Committee sort of goes about these bannings. I think there's a lot of things that could change for the better. Hopefully nothing changes for the worst, but again, I think the bannings to me were just weird. I guess on paper, all of the cards make sense, but it just really feels bad for players to have been blindsided by this. Again, I know there's no obligation, and at the end of the day, you're gambling money on these cards, but I think it sets a very weird precedent for players to sort of, nothing is safe, if that makes sense, right? Also, if we're going to be going after fast mana, this is something that I didn't talk about, which I meant to earlier, but, if we're going to be going after problematic fast mana, you can't, you have to be fair in that sense. They specifically didn't ban Soul Ring because it's too iconic to the format, right? But, I saw a lot of people talking about the Moxen bans, so the, Chrome Mox, Mox Diamonds, Mox Opal is a little bit tougher to get online, but, same thing, or, what's the other one? Mox Opal, and Mox Amber, right? Obviously, those cards aren't as explosive as Mana Crypt. I would be very interested to hear about thoughts on like Gaia's Cradle or Ancient Tomb, or I don't know if Serra's Sanctum is legal. I know Tolarian Academy I think is banned, but other sources of fast mana, you know, I don't know if they're trying to, if they're just limiting it to these cards. We'll have to see, but yeah, I don't know. You just have to be consistent, right? I think the gauntlet has been laid down. I think there has been a lot of change in terms of Magic, I feel. Jute Lotus itself has plummeted for, I'm definitely going to pick up a copy at like 50 cents to use as a treasure token, but I don't know. So, I guess, I'm almost at work, so I guess I'll have to wrap up, but I apologize for this discoherent ramblings. Again, maybe this will never see the light, but if it does, and you're listening to this right now, thank you. I'd love to hear about your thoughts in the comments or on Twitter, whatever it may be. But yeah, I guess, thanks for listening. Thanks for coming by. I hope you have a good morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you may be listening to this from. And I'll be with you again real soon. Take care and have a good one. Goodbye.